Right, and hello, and on this particular video we'll be doing a slight restoration job on this G1 Onslaught. He's been in my collection for quite a while, and when I got him he was quite banged up and beat up condition. So what we're going to be looking at is fixing these arms, which have come incredibly loose, as you can see. So we'll be having a look at that, and we're also going to be fixing these screws. So we'll be taking them out, and we're also going to be having a look at freeing up the hand joints which are here, because as you can see, you can't shift them, you can't get them out. So yeah, first things first, what I'm going to do is attempt to remove the screws on Bruticus. So I'm just going to have to lie the patient down for five seconds. And you'll notice I've got this little pot here. We're going to use some clear distilled vinegar. And we're going to generally soak the screws in half an hour. Soak the screws for half an hour in the distilled vinegar, which is going to be in there. And yeah, take it from there. So let's start by taking him to pieces. And generally, I'm going to look at repairing all the... this would be much easier to do if I weren't actually trying to reach around the camera, and generally having a look at what we can do to fix him. I should best pour my solution in there really before I go any further. Do quite a generous amount in there. That'll do. Right, I'll just carry on with unscrewing the rest of Onslaught, and I'll check back with you in about 5 or 10 minutes. Right, so we've got a slight manual note to add to this Bruticus restoration, well, Onslaught restoration that we were doing. As I come to undo most of the screws on front of Bruticus, it came to light that some of the screws, because this figure is generally that old, that some of the screws, like this particular top one, were absolutely jam-packed, rusted in, like there was nothing you could do, nothing at all to remove that. I did try numerous techniques, different size screwdrivers and what have you. So the closest thing I could get to fixing this screw and shining it up to make it look as new as possible was just generally to get a bit of the distilled vinegar on a cotton wool tip or a Q-tip, whatever you want to call them, and just generally try and clean the actual screw up in there as best I can. Now I've been trying for a bit, and as you can see, it does actually work. You know, most of the rust that was there has actually come off, so I'm quite pleased with that. But upon doing this, I actually discovered that there was more to fix and repair on the Onslaught. So what we're going to have to do is generally also have a look at this leg piece here, which seems to yeah, that's no good to man nor beast. So I've been racking my brains trying to think of how to do this, and I generally think that I'm going to attempt to undo this screw here, which connects to the obviously joint where this is causing the problem, and try and fix it up a bit, generally by maybe adding some PTFE tape and forcing the screw through a tighter thread. So we'll try it that way and see what it works. So give me about 5-10 minutes and we'll come back to this. Right, and we're back, and as you can see, right, I've actually undone the offending screws, which were generally all over the leg. We had to undo one main screw which held the actual component that we're trying to have a look at, the loose joint in general, and we have 3 other screws generally dotted around the leg area itself. Right, so as you remember, this kept flapping down and generally not tight at all. So there's the actual thread, and it looks a bit battered, to tell you the truth. And that generally sat in like that to do its connecting motion, but it kept flopping down. Right, so I think the easiest method of what we're going to do to restore this and generally fix it, we're going to see if it works, is generally use some PTFE tape. Now I bought this from the local corner shop up the road, to tell you the truth. Generally quite easy to get your hands on. It's what they generally use for fixing broken, it's plumber's tape 8 really. So just going through my box of tricks. Just cut a piece off like that. Now what I originally wanted to try to do is create a kind of just going to wrap it round like that, kind of like a raw plug effect, if that makes any sense at all. Now obviously you might be able to see, you're going to be able to see this, so once it's on there we're going to tidy it all up. Right, so that is going to sit like that, and we are going to get the rest of Bruticus. I keep calling him Bruticus, his name's Onslaught, Jesus Christ. Right, now the main screws was this large one here, which will give a tiny bit of a soak just to see if we can restore it. But that pin there was the one that went through this joint. Make sure you keep them separate because you can see they're all sort of different varying sizes. But that's the main one, that's the main offender. As you can see, just right there, a lot larger compared to the other ones. Right, so all being good, this might be a bit tricky to do. Right, I'm going to, that's it. Right, so that's going to attach like that. Now I want that to slightly, if I slightly jimmy it open just a bit and try and pop that in so it's all together, which is holding quite nicely. Right, excuse me if I go off camera just very, very slightly. Right, so that is going to go in there like so. Now I'm going to attempt to screw the offending item back in. And hopefully like this. Excuse me, there isn't no easy way to do this, is there really? I'm not. There you go, the screw's got some bite to it now. Oh. And yeah, that's a lot tighter. That is so much tighter, that's unreal. Right, so I'm just going to drop all the little tiny screws back in. I haven't actually cleaned these ones because they're not on display on the model or anything. Give them a general tighten. Just remember where all your screws went, because that's key. If you forget any of these, it's going to be a slightly wasted. Okay, and the other one, which was in this hole here. Cool, cool, cool. Right, job seems to be a good one. Right, so let's have a look. Yep, legs still move. up, down, in and out. Now, the moment of truth, that flap goes up there, perfect. This one, perfect. Right, but the trouble is we're left with that gaping sort of plaster. Now there's two ways I can do all of this. I can either cut it off with some scalpel equipment, or I can just generally paint it. For this moment in time, I think what I'm going to do is just leave it be and think about my next move after I've repaired these arms. Now, the arms, I think I'm generally going to use the same technique with the PTFE tape. If you'd like to come back in about, well, I'll just undo the screws. The ones I'm going to be unscrewing are just these ones at the shoulders here, to give you a bit of an idea. And once it's all disassembled and I have the screws out, I'll walk you through the technique which we're going to be using. Right, so as promised, I've come back to Bruticus, and I keep saying Bruticus, I mean Onslaught. I really do mean Onslaught. And as you can see, I've took apart the arm. Now, taking apart the arm was quite easy because we had a screw at the top here, and generally some screws which held the pieces in place. Now, what you have got to be aware of, which I did not know, is inside Bruticus's arm, Onslaught's arm, sorry, there are these springs. Now, pay close attention to where these springs actually are, because you don't want to lose them, because it seems to be part of the combining mechanism. And then obviously you have the arm, which is what normally gets stuck, well, and it is quite a pain in the arse to do. So what I'm going to do, before I have a look at tightening these joints up, I'm going to fix this. Now, if you are a child and you're not used to using anything like this, I'd get an adult to do it, if you want the truth. And what we're going to do is just use a normal blade, which you can get from any hobby shop, and I'm going to just slightly remove some of this plastic here, just to generally loosen this up. And I do apologise for my screen keep going dark and light. It isn't something that normally happens. Right, so just by removing them, some pieces like that, so you don't remove all of the plastic, and as you can see from the front, you can't actually tell it's any's been removed. Just remove enough so you feel comfortable that you think you'll be able to slide the fists in and out a lot better, like that. Right, now as I said, what happens here is this little divot sits in this joint here, like so. Right, and what's happened is over time, as you can see how battered and worn away that actually is. Underneath is the rest of the divot, where the two sort of slots sort of hold together, hold that bit in place basically, and go together like that. So you're just basically trapping that pin in here, and that's what's causing the looseness really, because over time this is worn away. So I'm going to use the same method as I did with the back leg piece. Use a PTFE tape and generally wrap around this area here, and then put him back together. So just get me a nice bit of a, not fat lock, because I don't want to don't use too much, else I won't get the thing back on. Right, no, I wouldn't worry about being too over the top with this. I mean, it is a fiddly job. If you're like me and you've got fat fingers, you are going to struggle. Apologies for knocking the camera there. I think I need a bit more tape on it than that, so tad more tape. Right, so that's basically what we want to end up with. Right then, so we've took the piece off the arm there, so the fish should slide out in and out quite nicely. Now, it's always best to remember how this actually fits together. So what I want to do is, I would say, slide that bit up like that first. Is that right? Yeah, it is, because the rest of that arm's going to go down, isn't it? Right, so once we've got that in place, we're going to get the other screw and generally pop it in and hopefully tighten it all up. Oh dear. Right, this is going to be something I'm going to do off camera, so I'll be back in just a second and I will show you the end result. Right, well, I managed to get that back on, and what made the process even easier is that I didn't realise that the whole bit actually could slot out of the arm, as it were, due to the little two divots that are on there. So, result, without, well, with the divots removed here, and you get this full joint, it's a lot easier to reattach the actual arm, which is banging. I actually really was quite impressed with that. And obviously, with that done, we can simply go by reattaching. Put the spring back in there like so. Put that pivot in there like that. And generally just fix him up. So, as you can tell, this spring is going to be slightly awkward and it's not going to give me no let up here. So, I'm just going to do all the faffing about off camera and I'll join you back in a second. Right, well, that was a lot harder than I thought it was, because what I failed to actually realise or tell you is just under Brutus's arm there's a slight sort of flap, and you've got to make sure that that is aligned to the joint before we can slide it in, and make sure all the springs in place too. Right, so once you've got hold of all that, we're just going to get the screws, and we've got one that we're going to pop in just here. If we can get it in. Try there first. That seems like the most easiest one to do. Right, and then we're just going to drop the other screw in there like that. I'm going to say it's really important that if you're going to do anything like this, just pay attention to any sort of screw or whereabouts anything is or where anything's coming from, because that is going to be absolutely vital. Right, so as you can see, after that little escapade of unscrewing and tightening, that is absolutely solid, holds a pose, unlike the other arm which cannot. And as for the arm itself, see, absolutely perfect. You just take off a bit of plastic. I could probably do with taking off a bit more if needs be, but generally that's it. I'm gonna do the other side of Bruticus off camera, because generally you don't want to see the same restoration twice. But yeah, that is how you fix loose joints on Bruticus. Bruticus Onslaught, sorry, Onslaught. And as you see, we've got the bottom pin there. Now, if you want to keep an eye on this channel, please like, share and subscribe, because I'll be doing a lot more restorations on the G1 Transformers and the G2, and generally the G3 with random problems that you're going to see. And I'm also going to be experimenting a lot with castings and stickers and bits and bobs like that. Right, so I'm now going to attempt to take the screws out of the white vinegar, which you can remember earlier, clean them up and generally restore them in Onslaught, and I will get back as soon as I've done that, and yeah, we'll take it from there. Right then, so off camera I actually did the other arm of Bruticus, Onslaught, and as you can see, both arms are now completely working and there's no flop or anything. He's completely poseable. Of course, by fixing the actual screws in the chest, this means that all the legs are now stiffened up and tight, and there is no floppiness on the back of the truck, which means he's now good to go. Unfortunately, the screws in the actual front of Onslaught didn't shine up as I wanted them to, but hey ho, I mean, he's always going to be in my collection, so I can always have a relook at that at some other video, because I do have quite a few restorations to get through. So if you enjoyed what you see and it helps you out a lot, I appreciate this. So please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one. Ta-ra.